I can just briefly introduce myself. I'm Tamila Akintunde Johnson. I'll still introduce myself when we have a fuller house, but I just don't want us to feel like we're all alone. So just introducing. All right. We're piling in. It's nice to see, nice to see. So all in all, maybe let's give maybe 5 minutes or so. We're just to have a full house. Welcome, Blessing. Welcome, Clifford. Welcome, Dami. Welcome, Hamida. For those of us just joining, we're giving a few more minutes for other participants to join, so we have a full house. This is going to be an interesting, hopefully illuminating session. So just give us maybe a few more minutes, 3, 4 minutes. Hi, Ayola, welcome. I feel like a broken record at this point, but as more participants join in, I have to mention that we're just waiting for a few more minutes for others to join. So we have a full house before we start the session and no one feels gets lost in the message. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Welcome, Femi. Welcome, Olumide. We'll soon reach the minute mark. Just give us a few more. Breathe in, breathe out. Since this is basically a session on thriving without burnout, I feel like this is a good time to start practicing sustainable techniques for working. Breathe in, breathe out. Let's start doing that. Be patient. Give us about 2 more minutes of your time. Practice some intentionality with your breathing. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As I mentioned before, for those of us that have heard this like 4 or 5 times, I'm really sorry about that. But for the new entrants, we're waiting for a full house. Just give us a few more minutes, maybe 2, 3 minutes. And in the meantime, you can drop, let me even try that. I've said my name already, but I can drop my name and where you can find me. Yeah. This is a webinar, but you can still use it as a networking opportunity. Drop your name and wherever you want people to reach you. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, Charles. Welcome, Blessing. Welcome, VA. Welcome, Kamisala. Hopefully this session will be worth your time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Welcome, Solomon. Welcome, Shala. Okay, it's 12:07. Okay, it's 12:07. I think we've got enough to start, so I'm going to kick us off now. Proper. Okay. Good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Tamilore Akintoye Johnson, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's webinar titled The Resilient Professional, Thriving Without Burning Out, rather. And I think this is it. I don't want to sound cliche, but this is a timely webinar that we're hosting today, especially for people that either are high performing professionals or want to be high performing professionals. This is something that will help us, especially as we're wrapping up the year and we're reflecting on what we did and we're stepping into a new one. Hopefully you would not be, especially me, if I finish resting, I'm going to try and enter everything with all guns blazing, and that may not be sustainable. So this session today is supposed to teach us a thing or two about how to work sustainably. I won't take too much of all of that, and I won't speak too much about it. I'll just lay some ground rules, and when our subject matter expert comes in, she'll speak a little about it. So, before I step into ground rules, actually, I would like to say just a bit about what DCSL does. Since this is hosted by DCSL, I just want to do a brief intro. It won't take more than a minute or two. What we do, aside from DCSL Academy, who put together this webinar that we're listening to, we also do governance services. We also do executive selection and talent recruitment. We provide company secretarial services. As you can see on the screen, this is a brief outlay of who we are. We're formerly Deloitte Corporate Services Limited. Our corporate competencies are listed on there. I won't bore you with all of them, but we also have DCSL Academy, as I just mentioned, that is hosting this webinar, and we have the Business Compliance and Advisory Unit. Each breakdown of what we do is already listed on your screen. Hopefully you will need our services soon. And that's just a subtle plug for what we do. Now I will move on to the meat of the day. I've given an intro into what this webinar is supposed to be about, but we're going to introduce a poll. It's a 3-question poll. And it's just so we can get the ball rolling on what today is, so you can guide our discussions. And back end, they're going to deploy the poll now. Hopefully you'll be seeing it on your screen as well. The first one is, which statement best describes your current professional experience? It's a single choice question. I feel energized and in control of my workload. That is not me. I feel stretched but still coping effectively. I see that one is gaining traction. That's the highest as of now. I often feel overwhelmed and exhausted. I feel burnt out and struggling to sustain performance. So there are some people on this planet that feel energized and in control of their workload. That's good to hear, actually. So to be honest, some days, so it depends on the day. Some days it feels like I'm in control. Some days I'm struggling for my life. Other questions there we have, how would you describe the way you currently work? And the last question there is, what does resilience currently mean to you as a professional? I see that, okay. Adapting, different people have different definitions, I see, for resilience. So one of the options there is the ability to endure and push through challenges, bouncing back quickly after setbacks, adapting, setting boundaries, and sustaining performance. Okay. And how would you describe the way you currently work? That one seems evenly split between working sustainably with clear boundaries and frequently pushing through pressure to meet expectations. This is not a therapy session, so I won't speak too much about how I feel about some of these responses, but anyway, yes. Feedback scene. Thank you for responding to the poll. Thank you. As I mentioned, this poll will guide conversations for our subject matter expert that will be coming on to speak to us today. But before I introduce our subject matter expert, I am going to go through just a few ground rules, just one or two. One, the comments section is for chats, anything you want to, any comment you want to drop for other participants or attendees to listen to respond to. And then the Q&A section. Please confirm if you can hear me in the comments, please. I hope I'm not talking to myself. I mean, I enjoy listening to the sound of my own voice, but it would be very, very awkward if I'm speaking to myself. Drop a comment if you can hear me. Or an icon. An icon is fine. Oh no, have I been speaking to myself? Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's a real nightmare. Anywho, so the ground rules that I want to set for today's session, just a second. The Q&A section, the Q&A is for the questions. Whenever you have questions for our subject matter experts, drop it there. The chat function is for comments, introductions, networking. And I just encourage you to, I know we all have a lot to do. If you're coming to this session, hope you're looking for a solution to a problem that you currently have. So, but I hope that you can avoid multitasking. Just breathe in, breathe out, and listen to our experts speak today. And then also lastly, this session is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube. Please invite as many people as possible as you think will need this. Invite them to join. So now on to our subject matter experts. Today with us, we have Dr. Bonjubola Abiri. She is a consultant psychiatrist, a lecturer, a psychologist, an EAPA professional, speaker, trainer, mental health advocate. She's really passionate about trauma, childcare, and adolescent mental health and women's health especially. I won't go too much into her accolades, her trainings, her experience and knowledge. Hopefully the session today will speak for itself. So welcome, Dr. Abiri. I'm handing over to you now. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Tamilore. Can you please confirm that you can hear me?
Clearly. You're very clear.
All right then. Right. A very good afternoon to you all, distinguished ladies and gentlemen on the call. I've been very well introduced, and as I step into these shoes today, I would like to welcome each and every one of us to the conversation. It was interesting listening to Tamilore speak. I just called her Taj. She gave a bit of a few more responses, you know, as the conversation was going on. And so she has lightened the conversation for us for a very important topic that we're discussing today. Today's topic is the resilient professional, thriving without burning out. And I know that, you know, in response to some of the poll questions that were put up earlier on, there were some people who appeared to be able to, you know, keep it all together. Perhaps not all the time, like Tamilore also mentioned. And of course, the way we also look at resilience differs. It's different things for different people at, you know, different times. Again, I would like to acknowledge the diversity of professionals present on the call today. Taj had asked earlier on that you please mention your names. If it's not too much to ask, if you could please tell us what you do for a living, that would also help to inform, you know, how rich this conversation will be, because it's for different professionals. The resilient professional is not one professional. It's not a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. It's people in finances, financial services, teachers, to mention but a few. I want to reassure us that today's session is a practical, reflective, and a conversation that is one that ensures that this is a safe space. And it is focused on us thriving, not just surviving. It's not a conversation about doing less, because, you know, most times when people come to conversations like this, they're thinking, well, if they're going to teach me how to be resilient, perhaps they're going to tell me how to not do so much at work. That's not what it is. It's about doing what matters without losing yourself in the process. So welcome one, welcome all. If there's someone, like Tamilore said, someone somewhere who you think is supposed to be on this call and is not here just yet, please invite them to join in. All right, let's move on and see Mr. A. The man on the next slide that would display very shortly is someone I have come to describe as Mr. A. Mr. A is seen in the picture. I don't know if the slide has changed on your own end. I'm still on slide 1 here.
Yes, not yet on our end.
All right. So I'll be patient and wait for that to happen. Thank you.
It's up now. We'll just give it a few more seconds.
Thank you. So we're on it. Thank you very much. So the man on this slide is Mr. A. And I say that Mr. A is all of us. If we see the picture here, Mr. A says to us that this is me trying to protect my mental health. Mr. A is wearing this attire that became extremely popular during the COVID-19 pandemic, sometimes even more powerful than the visa. No face mask, no entry. And Mr. A has gone through what we will call the Shege Pro Max, the Shege Banza, the ups and the downs, the obstacles of life. And all that he's trying to do is just survive. I want us to know that whether we know it or not, consciously or unconsciously on a daily basis, we are all doing things to protect our physical health, our mental health, and our well-being as well. Of course, our resilience is somewhere rooted deep in that conversation as well. This afternoon, I will be sharing a very personal story on the next slide, please. And I've titled it my burnout story. The truth is, I've not shared this story in so many audiences before because, again, it's a very personal story to me. I titled it my burnout story because that's exactly what it was. And the date, as you can see, was the 15th of February, 2022. It was the day after Valentine's. On Valentine's Day, it's interesting, I didn't wear red. But for this event, I wore red. This day, rather. And this day, I was working as the medical director of a top psychiatric facility. I had to do clinical work, administrative work. It was a lot. So I got to work with the usual energy. Let's do it. Let's finish all that there is to do. And then all of a sudden it was 8 o'clock, in and out of meetings, attending to patients, doing presentations. And then 8 o'clock, I was going home when I realized, wow, I hadn't eaten all day. I hadn't had time to pause, to take it all in. So I stopped at the supermarket and bought a bottle of yogurt. And as I downed it, what happened was that my circulation, so when you eat a meal, your circulation diverts from your brain to your stomach. And then when I got home and I had to get up the stairs of my apartment, by the time I got to the 9th floor, I was going to the 11th and 12th floor. I started feeling faint. I felt like I was going to collapse. And so the next day, I took myself to a lab. And I found out that my body wasn't in a good place. And so over the months, I had been feeling it, but I kept pushing myself. I kept pushing myself because I kept thinking, don't worry, just show up. That day and the day after when I had to go and do a blood test were not the worst days because, of course, what I found out at the blood test pretty much shocked me. But I think what shocked me even more was that the next month I had gone to a routine hairdressing salon to make my hair, hairdresser's appointment, and my hair started to fall out. It was then that I realized that I had pushed myself almost off the cliff. And it was then that I realized that I had burnt out. That's my own burnout story. And the reason why I am willing to share that story today is the power of stories. The fact that it happened to me, it doesn't have to happen to you before you find yourself back. Moving on very quickly, let's move on and talk about what are your expectations. I see that, please let's engage on the chat box. What are your expectations? Success is definitely clearly dependent on our expectations. You've come for this conversation on the resilient professional, how to thrive without burning out. What are some things that you look out for? What are some things that you expect that you would hear from this conversation? What do you need clarity and more ideas about? Because at the end of the day, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to achieve all of this and even more as you've come to the session today. At the end of this session, and this is me sharing what the objectives are, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to understand what burnout is. It's not just a fancy English word that people throw around, and Nigerians do like to throw around words. We will look at healthy stress, we'll look at resilience, we will identify some personal and organizational burnout risk factors. We will look at practical science-informed resilient strategies and talk about strengthening boundaries, recovery habits, and psychological safety. I would also help us to create a personalized resilience action plan for the coming year because, again, 2026 is just around the corner. And of course, I would end with what I would call the 10 habits of the resilient professional. Before we get started, and just like the poll that we just did, if you had to pick, what does burnout look like in your profession? What I have done is I have picked 4 professions here. And while yours, may be reflected here, yours may also not be reflected here as well. Ahmed Mohammed is chatting in the box and he says, I am feeling as though I haven't done enough for 2025. I think I'm not showing enough gratitude and appreciating the little things that matter most. I am focused on the big things. The truth is that sometimes we're tempted to just dismiss everything that we've done without taking stock. So it's a good thing that you're here today so that you can take stock and understand how far you have come today. And so if you had to look at your own profession, what does burnout look like? My own profession is here. You can see the healthcare provider seated on the floor. She's tired and worn out. But for the teacher, you can see that teacher in class. Students are having a good day. And she has her hands on her head like, my head is about to explode. What does burnout look like in your profession? Very closely to her on the right side is the finance professional who is looking at all the ups and downs, the highs and the lows in the financial markets. For the engineer, tired with his helmet on, is tired, exhausted, probably doesn't know what next to do, how to do it, or how to move from where he is to where he should get to. Burnout looks different in our different professions and in our different lives as well. And it's the reason why we must be aware, we must be informed, and very importantly, why we must also do this checkup. This checkup pretty much mimics the poll that we took earlier on. I've said here that it's time for a checkup. If you used to watch Doc McStuffins, she used to say, time for a checkup, time for a checkup. If you had to look at your life, your health, your physical health, your well-being now, here and now, would you say that you are excelling? Would you say that you are thriving? Would you say that you're surviving? Would you say that you're struggling? Or would you say that you are in the reds, in crisis? And this color codes just pretty much remind me of that song we used to sing when we were young. If you see a traffic light, there is something you must do. Red means stop. In crisis, it pretty much means that you must stop. It means you can't get anything done. It means that you are burnt out, flat out, and unable to function. Of course, yellow means get ready. And so whether it's orange, it's amber, surviving or struggling, there's still some energy. But of course, the goal is to aim for the greens, either the lemon green or the deep green, to thrive, and not just thrive, to excel in every area of our careers. So if you had to look at yourself in this time and in this moment, physical health, mental health, well-being, would you say that you are in crisis, struggling, surviving, thriving, or would you say that you are excelling? Food for thought. Let's think about it. Let's share our responses. And let's talk about why this conversation is particularly important now. This conversation is particularly important now because it's end of the year. I mean, like Ahmed just said, I'm feeling as if I haven't done enough for 2025. So everybody is end of the year, taking stock. It's not just Spotify that is telling us, what their list is. Even LinkedIn has come out and said, oh, this is the person you engage most. This is what you did most. People are also introspecting and reflecting as to what exactly have I done? What exactly have I achieved? So a lot of fatigue comes at the end of the year. There are also high expectations. Oh, I don't think I've done so much. Oh, I said I was going to do this 10 things, but when people ask me what have you saved this year, the only thing I probably can say I've saved is my life. You've saved something. You've done quite a lot. Of course, there's the economic pressure, and it's hitting everyone. It's not just people in the low socioeconomic status. Even the people in the high socioeconomic status are feeling the heat. We also have the blood work-life boundaries. A lot of people leave work, but they don't stop working because work doesn't stop. There's a culture in their workplace that unfortunately makes them be on all through 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The pace and nature of work has also changed. It happened with COVID, but it appears to be sustained. The work is complex. There's a lot of digital overload, constant availability, and rapid change, which leave little room for recovery. Of course, the new normal is that people almost always feel that if they're not seen to be working, they are not productive and that they are not appreciated. We must also understand that this conversation is important because our decision-making skills, problem-solving skills, and productivity are dependent on our well-being. If you are not well, physically, but more mentally, you will not be able to get anything done at the workplace. These days as well, we must remember that talent retention depends on well-being. Nobody wants a sick employee. Nobody wants to see a sick doctor. And so the value of the work that you bring is proportional to the health of your body and your mind. And last but not the least, this conversation is important because resilience is not a have or have not. It is not something that you were born with and that you cannot develop. It is a skill that can be learned over time. And of course, today's conversation is going to show us how we can learn this skill. Now, let's move on and let's bust some myths. And so some people think that burnout is just being tired. Again, I said earlier on that sometimes Nigerians like to throw words around, oh, depression, oh, narcissism. No, burnout is not just tiredness. Burnout is more than exhaustion. It is emotional, mental, and spiritual depletion as well. Myth 2 says that burnout only happens to people in high-powered or corporate jobs. Again, you're wrong. The truth is that burnout can happen to anyone, including parents, students, carers, healthcare workers, artists, and even retirees, as people go about what they have come to know as their occupation. Myth 3 is that burnout means that you are weak or not coping well. No, it is not true. Burnout often affects strong, capable, dedicated people who care deeply about the work that they do. Now let's move on to myth 4, which is on this slide. If you love what you do, you won't burn out. That's not true. You can burn out because passion doesn't prevent burnout. In fact, passion can hide it. Passion sometimes even fuels burnout because after a while, you don't slow down. You just keep giving and giving and giving without realizing that, you're struggling. And the last myth that I want us to bust today is that burnout goes away on its own if you push through. Just keep doing it, just keep doing it, just keep showing up, it will go away. Again, that's not true. Burnout requires you to change something. It's not just about resting and the next morning you get up again. Burnout requires you to make a significant change about something that you've been doing quite wrong all of this while. Now, let's continue the conversation and understand what exactly burnout is. I want us to pay attention to the picture on the right of this slide. And we see something that a significant number of us still use. I say a significant number because, well, some people are using heat panels to cook their food, but some people still use matches to light gas or light stoves. And when you light it, if it's still burning, you'd see the slow decline, how it eventually burns. And that's what burnout is. Burnout is a WHO phenomenon, an occupational phenomenon that is described as a syndrome that results from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. As we go on in today's conversation, you will see that stress is a normal part of our lives. However, burnout happens when there is chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. And what are the 3 components of burnout? The individual is emotionally exhausted. They're just emotionally exhausted, unable to feel their own feelings, emotionally numb, not able to take it anymore. Sometimes they feel what is called depersonalization or cynicism. The individual starts to feel like they are unreal in their own bodies. They're struggling to be in the moment, struggling to actualize something that we call mindfulness. And so that kind of person can drive from their home to their office without paying attention to anything on the road. And when they get there, they're thinking, oh, how did I get here? Depersonalization. And after a while, of course, they start hating the job that they say that they once very much loved. The last thing is that individuals who are burnt out have what is called a reduced personal accomplishment. And so regardless of how hard they work, regardless of how much they put in, they just keep telling themselves, no, I haven't done enough. Other people have it better. They discredit their work, they discredit their worth, they discredit their value just because they are burnt out. I want us to understand today that burnout does not wear a uniform. It doesn't announce itself with flashing lights. It is slow and it is insidious. However, burnout is a message, not a weakness, and we must pay attention to that. Burnout is your mind crying out and telling your body, guy, we need to stop. It is telling your body that finally pay attention to me, and it is saying it very loudly. You must normalize the response when you feel burnout, or you get to the point of burnout rather, that you are not broken. You are burning, and the fires can be put out. But the fires will be put out if you put out those fires early enough. Now let's talk about what is known as the stress continuum model. Also, I would discuss stress at this level. Most times when people hear the word stress, they're thinking negative things. Oh, I'm so stressed out. I'm overwhelmed. I am burnt out. So some people also equate stress with burnout. But remember that burnout is chronic stress. Stress in itself is a normal physical and physiological response to what is known as a stressor. I always say that the biggest stressor for me in a city like Lagos is traffic. For different people, different things are stressors. Sometimes our stressors are internal, sometimes they're external. Sometimes our stressors are actually expectations that we have of ourselves. Extremely high expectations, knowing that we may not be able to deliver. Sometimes external stressors, traffic, family expectations, dirty December, people are saying, oh, the IJGBs just got back and everybody's trying to go to one concert or just do something. Our stressors can be in and around us. However, the conversation today is that stress is entirely normal. What is abnormal or what is unusual is chronic stress. And chronic stress can become debilitating, disastrous to us, and distressing as individuals. Again, if you look at this model, you will see that just like that question that I asked you, are you, thriving? Are you surviving? Are you excelling? Are you in critical condition? This stress model also tells us that some people will face some level of stress at the green level, but they're able to function optimally. Stress is actually a driver. It is a motivator in small amounts. And when stress shows up, you feel well, you're motivated to grow, but you're also adaptive to situations. When stress starts to become overwhelming, you start to react. There's mild stress, but it's easily managed with limited support. When stress becomes huge, chronic, disastrous, and overwhelming is when we then get to the point of feeling injured or feeling ill. At the point of feeling ill, the individual has what we call a significant functional impairment. They are unable to function fully. And at that point, will need additional support. And there's also threat of potential harm to themselves and others. So take this away today. Stress in itself is not bad. Exposure to chronic stress, however, can be debilitating, disastrous, and distressing for the individual as well. Now let's go on and talk about this high performer. This high performer was a patient that I managed a few years ago. It was the person everyone relied on. It was consistently early, consistently prepared, consistently excellent. It was consistently consistent. He met deadlines, he exceeded targets, and he solved all problems that were brought to him. One morning, however, he couldn't get out of bed. And when he was asked how he was feeling, he described it as everything was shutting down at once. He said, Dr. Abri, it was as if I had like 50 tabs in my head and they just started shutting down one after the other. I didn't have control over it. What happened was that he had burnt out. He didn't realize it because, again, burnout is slow. Burnout doesn't announce itself. Burnout is insidious. We had to recommend that he take 6 months away from work because, unfortunately, by the time he came to us, he couldn't function. Even the simple things that he would always be able to do in autopilot mood, he couldn't do it. And so burnout can be debilitating. The work that you think that you love so much and you can't do without can become that thing that, unfortunately, when you then burn out, you are unable to make it happen. And so please, he said to me, the signs were there long before I broke. I just didn't think I was allowed to listen to them. We need to stop, pay attention, and listen to our bodies. Otherwise, burnout will take us over. Now let's move on and see what the next story that I want to share with us is the story of another doctor. I shared my own story earlier. And the reason why I'm sharing this story by another doctor is because this is one of 6 conversations that I have had on the conversation burnout this year. Keynote speeches, presentations, everyone just wanted to hear about burnout. This doctor detailed his story in this book, which is available on Amazon, by the way. A short story on anxiety, depression, hope, and recovery. And in this book, this doctor detailed how very slowly and insidiously he burnt out. And he had to leave work again for a very long time. If we don't stop burnout or recognize it when it starts, which is one of the many things that we'll talk about, it will take over us And we may then get to a point where we're unable to get anything done. So it's particularly important to pay attention to burnout. Let's move on as we talk more about the common burnout symptoms. You see, when burnout happens, just like this lady in the picture that has her head on the table and her battery is almost out, it affects every part of our bodies. It affects our physical bodies, it affects our minds, it affects our emotions, our mental health, it affects everything. And so some of the cognitive signs, cognition, of course, has to do with our thinking abilities. Some of the signs that we see is that the individual who is burnt out has difficulty concentrating. They have memory lapses. They have problems making decisions. Most times they are thinking negative about themselves, negative about the world, and negative about the future as well. And more often than not, people who burn out also have perfectionistic tendencies. If it's not this way, it cannot be any other way. That can be very stressful. The emotional signs that individuals who are burnt out show include irritability. They are cranky, even at the littlest thing. Sometimes they don't even know why they're cranky. Sometimes they have mood swings. This moment they feel very low. Next moment they're happy, cheery. The next moment they're crying, and they probably can't tell you why. Many of these individuals have a low motivation. They're not enthused. They don't feel like doing anything. Some may feel anxious. Some may withdraw, isolate from everyone else. And many of them have work-related anxiety. Once you mention work like this, they just go into a spiral. They can't control themselves. The physical signs of burnout include persistent fatigue. Without doing anything, waking up after a long night's sleep, they're tired. They have headaches. And regardless of whether they just treated malaria or they just used paracetamol, the headache is still there. They have migraines. Sometimes there's muscle tension or pain in the muscles, especially around the shoulders. They sleep poorly. There's weakened immunity. And if there's one that seems to catch everybody's attention, if anything else doesn't catch anybody's attention, is the fact that some individuals have low libido. And so they are unable to perform in what we will call the other room. Last but not the least is that some people also show behavioral signs. And some of the behavioral signs include procrastination. Oh, I'll do it later. Oh, I will get to it until the last minute, and anxiety comes in, and then that loop continues. Many individuals are also unable to manage their time because they're not even in tune with time. They're focusing on everything else but time. There's poor coping with work, and people cope with their work. And so instead of resting from work, they find themselves coping with more work, coping with food, substances of abuse such as alcohol, cigarettes, marijuana, to mention but a few, or other unhealthy habits, including spending money excessively to buy things that they don't need to impress people that generally don't care. The next part of this conversation is I want us to understand, why don't we see burnout coming? And I've identified 4 things. The first thing I've said is, as Nigerians, we have this culture that is called can't stop, won't stop. And this pressure is often driven by pressure and fear, the fear of failure. If I don't do it, they will replace me. I will fall behind. Many times it's rooted in organizational expectations and survival mode. There's also what is known as the hustle culture. Hustle, we always hear that thing on the streets. We say, hustle, you have to hustle. And the hustle culture is driven by identity and aspiration. Productivity at the workplace becomes a badge of honor. And so if that individual feels like, oh, I haven't achieved much this year, they don't feel like they're worth it. It becomes a source of self-worth, which unfortunately at the end of the day may not be a true reflection of what you have put into the workplace. There's also what is called the silent burnout. And that one is dangerous because many people are burning out without even realizing that they're burning out. It's not obvious collapse. There are no complaints. From the outside, the individual looks fine. They look okay. Everything is going on well. They're on adrenaline most times of the day. Probably the individual is also taking a lot of coffee to, pump their system. But internally, these individuals are emotionally exhausted. They're disengaged, and they are running on an empty tank. The last reason why people don't see it coming is because they can have a form of depression that is being debated these days. It's called functional depression, also known as high functioning depression, also known as smiling depression, also known as max depression. And what is this depression? It just describes a type of depression where the individual continues to function in spite of the fact that they're not feeling well. Outside and in the full glare of everyone, everything seems to be going on well. But behind closed doors, these individuals are struggling. Now, let's quickly look at what are some of the drivers of burnout across professions. And so if you're on the call today, whether you're a teacher, you're an engineer, you are a doctor, a lawyer, a finance expert, a management consultant, the common drivers for burnout across professions can either be individual or they're organizational. And for the organizational, of course, we know excessive workload, where there are persistent demands that exceed available time. And sometimes in your head, you're thinking, if there was just more than 24 hours in a day, it exceeds your energy and the resources available to you. Number two is the role ambiguity. There are unclear expectations, priorities, or responsibilities. You come to work, you're not sure what to do, you don't have a JD, a job description, and you're just supposed to figure it out somehow because that's how the people who were ahead of you figured it out somehow. Number three is that sometimes there's value conflict and there's pressure to act against personal or professional values, which comes with integrity. Because some roles that we have, some people will expect you to do things that you would not want to do that go against your own personal values. Sometimes it's the lack of control. There's limited autonomy over decisions, schedules. You get to work and you already have an idea of what you want to do, but somebody somewhere just thinks that there's a better way and didn't think to tell you before that day. It sets you off and can put you at risk for burnout. The last is that there's chronic time pressure and unrealistic deadlines. And we know that sometimes some jobs that we expose ourselves to, some professions can actually ensure that, unfortunately, there's no space for recovery or for quality work. The individual burnout factors include poor boundaries, and some of us don't know how to say no. Difficulty saying no, or difficulty switching off leads to continuous energy, of course, will lead to depletion. Sometimes you should say no. Sometimes you should be able to say that I'm not going to take this work home. I will do the best that I can at work, except of course, a life is at risk or there's a deadline that perhaps you slacked and you didn't get to do when you were supposed to do it. And we will talk about how people can work at the workplace so you also don't feel like you're too stretched with the amount of time that you get. The second factor is poor self-perception. It's unfortunate that in this age and time, a lot of young people tie their self-worth to the work that they do. You are more than your work. And so even when work fails every now and then, you are not a failure. Don't define yourself by what you've been able to achieve or what you can't achieve. Is there growth? Have you moved from where you were? There's a quote that I like very much, and it's by Ernst Hemingway, that true nobility is being superior to your previous self. Other people look about being superior to their fellow men, but true nobility comes from being superior to your previous self. Who were you yesterday? What did you know? Have you improved from that person that you were? The third factor rather is the lack of recognition or appreciation. And a lot of people feel unseen. They feel undervalued. It erodes their morale and commitment to work as well. Moving on, I want us to look at this picture. And I'd like to get our responses because we all look, but we see differently. You're looking at this picture. What do you see? I'll give us about 30 seconds. People to drop the comments on what they see in the chat box. So again, we look, but we see differently. What do you see? Thank you. An otter with a tree stump in its mouth. Okay. I didn't see an otter before, but now that you mention it, perhaps there's an otter there. What do we see when we look at this picture? Do we want to share? A thriving flower in a difficult environment. Thank you very much. Thank you. And as our responses come in, let's move on. Again, we look, but we see differently. And the conversation, of course, for today, Toyosi says, a living tree on a dead log. Thank you. Thank you very much. So you see life. Maya Wabelo says, thriving irrespective of what is surrounding you, focusing on growth. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ifeanyi Chukwu, a growing tree from a dead wood. Good. I'm having responses now. Nice. Ahmed Mohammed says, post-traumatic growth. Abdullah Olajuwon says, a tree sprouting from a tree residue. Temitope Banere says, a lake with grasses on it. Oyetunji Ayola says, a thriving flower in a difficult environment. Again, we all look, but we see differently. But what I want us to see, most importantly, is resilience. When we look at this brain, if I asked anyone now, I'm sure somebody will say a wrecking ball. And of course, it's probably a song that will go on in our minds. And it's resilience. Resilience is not just some fancy word to say that someone is strong or that someone can't break under pressure. Resilience is a process. Many things in life are a process because many things in life are not abracadabra. They're not just magic. Resilience is a process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress. You see, as much as we say that life is beautiful, like Asha would say, don't you think so too? Life is indeed beautiful. And even if roses are very beautiful, even roses have thorns. Life has its ups and downs. You know, sometime last week I lost my voice and I couldn't speak. And I kept thinking, how would I speak when I have this presentation? For me, that was a significant life moment because I had to cancel some appointments. I also remember speaking to a couple of friends last week, 2 different people, 2 different cities, and 2 of them had lost their brothers within days. Traumatic life events will come. Sometimes it's the loss of a promotion, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a loved item, including a few weeks ago, I looked at someone who I was told lost someone in her family. And when I went to meet her, I said, I'm so sorry. They say you lost someone in your family. And she was like, well, yeah, someone, but not someone like that. I'm like, so what did you lose? She said, my dog. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. And she's like, it's interesting. Everyone else dismissed it or started laughing when I said my dog. And I'm like, no, it's what is important to you. Different things are important to people. And so resilience has to do with adapting well, because sometimes adversity will come, trauma will come, tragedy may show up. Life may not go the way that we had envisioned it, but somehow, in spite of it all, we're still supposed to stand. Now, there are 4 different kinds of resilience, and I will speak to them very, very quickly. The first is psychological resilience. And psychological resilience has to do with the ability to adapt our thinking to cope with stress and to recover from setbacks. The second type of resilience is emotional resilience. And being resilient emotionally has to do with being able to recognize, understand, and regulate our emotions effectively, even when under pressure. And so sometimes when you hear people say, oh, when that person slapped me, I just slap back. You know, whenever they give me bars, I just give bows. A slap may be extreme, but sometimes emotional resilience speaks to how we're able to comport ourselves, regardless of what the other individual is throwing at us. Number 3 is physical resilience. And physical resilience speaks to our body's ability to withstand stress, fatigue, and illness, and recover effectively. It's the reason why something may happen to 2 people and they recover in very, very different ways. It is because one person is probably more physically resilient than the others. And the last is social resilience. And social resilience has to do with our capacity to build and maintain supportive relationships that will help us cope with stress. You see, in this day and age, loneliness is such a big deal. In fact, it is such a big deal that in the UK, there's a minister for loneliness. A lot of people are lonely. A lot of people can be surrounded by people, but they find themselves very, very lonely. And social resilience is a skill that we need in this day and age. Now, let's move on and talk about what the tools for resilience are. You see all these beautiful cars? These cars won't move if we don't move them. And these cars also will not move if they are not in good condition. And so beyond the beauty, beyond the exterior that we see, there's an interior, there's an engine, there's an intact engine that has to work. Of course, there has to be petrol inside it as well. And someone has to probably be in it or control it somehow. And that's what resilience is like. For resilience to work, there's an engine. Beyond the engine, there are skills. And last but not the least, beyond the skills is the environment. And so let's move on to the engine of resilience, what I call the engine of resilience. The engine of resilience is what is known as neuroplasticity. It's a word that we may have heard, may have seen, may have been curious about. But what neuroplasticity simply means is that it describes the brain's ability to change, to grow, and to adapt. Gone are the days when people used to say that, oh, when someone gets to a certain age, your brain stops growing. No, your brain can continue to grow. And your brain can continue to grow if you look at the fact that it starts at the molecular level, it goes to the cellular level, network, and then it shows up in your behavior. However, your brain will not continue to grow if you don't put in place mechanisms and measures to help it grow on a daily basis. That's what neuroplasticity describes. The fact that your brain can change, it can grow, it can adapt, it can learn new things, it can relearn, and it can also unlearn. How can we develop neuroplasticity? Someone would ask. Number one, by practicing affirmations. The words that you say to yourself are not just words. Even when you talk to yourself, be kind to yourself. Stop telling yourself things like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I didn't finish well. Oh, I have failed. Oh, I'm such a failure. Say kind things to yourself because your brain replies and responds to the things that you say to yourself. Number two is that you must learn to practice mindfulness. And mindfulness has to do with being present in the moment. Many of us just go through life. We don't pay attention to the things around us. We don't pay attention to the things that matter. Our minds are full, but we are not mindful of the moment. An example of being mindful of the moment is you go through a street and you're able to identify a few things that, oh, yesterday this wasn't there. They've built this house. Oh, this flower is actually the color purple. Those things may seem like little things, but they matter. It's also very important to spend time in nature. Spend time in nature, take in fresh air, whether it's a beach, whether it's a park, spend time in nature. Allow your brain to improve. Exercise is also very, very important because exercise helps you to release what is known as the feel-good hormones. And exercise is good for pretty much everything. For sleep, for sex, for muscle development, for cognitive development, you name it. Practicing gratitude. And I'm happy that Ahmed, in spite of the fact that he was talking about perhaps not being able to achieve much in 2025, he said, perhaps I'm not practicing gratitude. Gratitude changes the way that you see the world. Gratitude changes the little that you have to more than enough. Gratitude will help you understand that yesterday you were not here, or last year this wasn't where you were. And regardless of whether it is one step higher, you have moved on. Gratitude for not just yourself, but for the people around you, for the things that you're able to do seamlessly. Mindful gratitude. Mindful gratitude has to do with being able to identify the things that you're grateful for and also why you are grateful for these things. Of course, you must learn to care for your body. If you don't care for your body, your mind will suffer. Be kind to your body. Whether you're eating or you're drinking, you must know that whatever I put into my mouth, I'm either feeding disease or I'm fighting it. Eat to feed your body, not to fuel your emotions. Avoid comfort eating. Sleep well. Sleep is not for the weak. Sleep is for the human. And of course, exercise. Be kind to your body at all times. Last but not the least, with the development of neuroplasticity, is that you must learn new skills. I always say that boredom is a significant motivator for me. Once I get bored, I'm thinking, I'm bored. What do I want to learn? Do I want to learn a new language? Do I want to learn a new instrument? Do I want to learn how to sketch my designs? Or is it professional competencies? You must always learn because, learning is the biggest room in the world. You must continually develop yourself. Nobody arrives all at once. We are all a work in progress. Now let's move to number two. And number two is the pillars of resilience. There are 5 pillars of resilience. And I described this as the skills that we need to learn. What are the skills? Number one, we must be able to learn the skill of emotional stability. Not just being aware of your emotions, but being able to regulate them and remain calm, even under pressure. Why does it matter? It helps you reduce burnout. It helps you, prevent just responding without thinking. It improves your decision-making skills, and it helps you to maintain focus in high-stress situations. The second thing is what is known as cognitive flexibility. A number of people are cognitively inflexible. Once they have a thought like this, it's either that thought or nothing at all. What does that do? It shrinks our thinking. It doesn't allow us to think as much as we should. And so to develop cognitive flexibility, we must be able to adapt our thinking, shift perspectives, and at the end of the day, what it does is that it will help us to solve problems creatively. Because if you keep sticking to one thing and saying it's either this way or no other way, you'll struggle. You'll struggle on your own. Your team will struggle with you. And what you could have done in 1 hour, you find that 5 days later, you guys are still struggling to do it. Number 3 is social support. We all need people. No man is an island. Having reliable relationships and network that provide emotional and practical support is extremely important. And I know that somebody on the call may be thinking, oh, people have disappointed me in the past. I really don't trust anyone. There are still good people out there. People who can bring value to your life and make your life beautiful. I understand that you may have been hurt before, but please don't cut people off just because one person has been unkind to you. It matters to have people around you because it's a great buffer against stress. It provides you with guidance, and it also helps in building resilience. Number 4 pillar is finding meaning and values. And what do I mean by finding meaning and values? In our lives, in our individual lives, we must have a sense of purpose, a sense of alignment. What guides you? Is it integrity? Is it character? Is it diligence? Is it dedication? And it's with professional and personal values as well. You must be seen to be someone who walks your talk. You know, they always say that ability may get you to the top, but it takes character to keep you there. What is your character like? Why does it matter? It motivates persistence. It helps you cope with adversity. And of course, in times of setbacks, in times of doubt, people can always look out for you and say that, I know her. She's someone who would stick by her word. Our word is a bond. The last one, of course, again, is physical well-being. We talked about it when we talked about neuroplasticity. Maintaining a healthy body through exercise, sleep, nutrition, and energy management is extremely important. Prioritize rest and exercise, even when there is heavy workload. Even at this end of the year, please don't burn out. Prioritize rest. Sleep, like I said, is not for the weak. Sleep is for the human. Now, I'll be sharing a few practical tools over the next couple of slides. And the first one I want us to share, or rather, the last thing, with resilience is the environment. No matter how resilient we are as individuals, if we are not resilient in the environment that we stay in, either at home or at work, it comes to nothing. It's an exercise in futility. And so how can we have workplace practices, or what are the workplace practices that can help us? Number 1 is psychological safety. And psychological safety speaks to the fact that we must have workplaces that look out for us. Workplaces that say to us that it is okay to make mistakes, not deliberate mistakes, not mistakes that will cost an arm and a leg, but that it is okay to have errors. It's okay to explain that you don't know, and that there's no shame in asking for help. It's very important that we have workplaces where instead of blaming an individual who doesn't get something done all the time, you replace blame with curiosity. A psychologically safe workplace is one where an individual feels seen, heard, valued, and validated. Number 2, we must have healthy workload conversations. What do we say when we work? Are we constantly bullying someone, making fun of someone, or are we praising people in spite of their little efforts? We must see people, value them, and validate them as well. Number 3, we must normalize rest and support. There are a couple of workplaces where when people go on leave or they go to the hospital to see the doctor, when they come back, they're ashamed. They're ashamed because there's a hustle culture and people are saying, you can't work as hard as everyone else. You can't work as hard as everyone else because you're not everyone else. We need workplaces that normalize rest and support. And of course, we need workplaces where leadership models vulnerability. If your leader at the workplace can tell you, it's okay, I've struggled with this thing too, or sometimes I'm not sure, and I also need to look it up, then everyone else in that organization feels like, come on, nobody is perfect after all. We're all just a work in progress. We also need workplaces that have policies that protect, policies that look out for us even when we're not there, not just for the men, not just for maternity, for women, policies that are all encompassing and see everyone. Of course, we need workplaces that are safe spaces for difficult conversations. How are you? Workplace where it is okay to say I am not okay, and where someone will tell you while it's not okay, or rather while it's okay not to be okay, it's not okay to stay that way. You need to get some help. And of course, that's the next step. Access to professional help. Workplaces that will not tell you, oh, that's your business, oh, what on earth, all that you're supposed to come and do here is work. Nah. You need workplaces that can say that if you're troubled, if you're struggling, I would point you in this direction. And of course, we need workplaces that train managers to look out not just for themselves, but for everyone else that works for them as well. Let's move on and talk about The practical tools to prevent burnout. The first one I would say is as simple as A, B, C, D, E. We must know that most stress, and I'm saying stress now because burnout is because of chronic stress. Most stress begins with how we interpret events, not the events themselves. Sometimes it's not about what we hear, it's about what we tell ourselves about what we hear. And so what does the ABCDE do? It helps us challenge unhelpful thoughts when they come. And so, for instance, if you feel distressed or you feel angry at the workplace, the first thing that you must do is identify what you're feeling. You must be able to name what you're feeling so that you can tame it. It's called name it to tame it. And so the first thing you must do is identify what the activating event is. What happened before I started feeling this way? Number two is that you must ask yourself, what are my beliefs about this? So for instance, imagine that a subordinate was rude to you and you're angry. The first thing that you're thinking is, I'm angry. But you must ask yourself, what happened before I got angry? Number two, what did you tell yourself about that situation? Number two, what did you tell yourself about that situation? So some people, when people are rude to them, it's not about what's happening in that moment. It's about what had happened before. And then they're probably looking at themselves and saying, everybody's always rude to me. Even this subordinate is also rude to me. And that you may start feeling like maybe you are not man enough or woman enough. You must look at what the emotional consequence is. Because this has happened, I feel angry. I feel irritable. I feel whatever it is that you feel. The D encourages that you challenge the irrational belief. Just because someone has spoken to me in a manner that seems derogatory does not mean that it may just be about how they're feeling or how they can, express themselves. And the E says to you that you must replace old beliefs with effective new beliefs. I am not my thoughts. While that person may have said nasty things to me, perhaps it's about how they're feeling. Again, remember that some of the stress that we put on ourselves come with how we interpret the things that are happening around us. It may not necessarily be about us. It may just be about the things around us. Pay attention to the triggers, to the activating event. And remember that it's as simple as A, B, C, D, E. The next skill I want us to look at is what is known as the 5-4-3-2-1. And the 5-4-3-2-1 is a grounding exercise. Next slide, please. It's a grounding exercise. And this grounding exercise helps us to be in the moment, pay attention to the things around us. It's a mindful type of exercise. It's called the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding exercise. And so when you feel anxious, when you feel tense, when you are in between conflict, deadlines, or difficult clients, you can just say, you know what, let me drop anchor with the 5-4-3-2-1. And what's the 5-4-3-2-1? Identify, just sit down in a corner or in your seat and look around you for 5 things that you can see. The next thing is 4 things that you can feel. And it can be you touching your hands or you feeling the headphones on your ear or on the bridge of your nose or feeling, your bum as you sit in the chair or feeling your legs on the floor. 4 things you can feel. Number 3 talks about 3 things you can hear. Right now, I can hear my voice. I can hear the fan and I can hear the raindrops outside my window. Number 2 things you can smell. I can smell my perfume and I can smell the normal smell of this room. And the last thing is 1 thing that you can taste. If you notice that when you're doing this exercise, everything else stops. You bring yourself to this moment. You ground yourself in this moment. And in that moment, nothing really matters. The beautiful thing about this kind of exercises, as well as the next one that I'll be talking about, is that it is important to try them before you get into distress. If you know how to do them before you get into distress, then it's easier to do them when you get into distress. It's like saying you have tools, but you go to keep your tools in the garage, and on the day of war, you bring out your tools. No, you'd have learned how to use the bow and arrow, or maybe the machete. People who go to war need to, master their tools before they go to war. These are your own tools. And these are your tools against stress so that it does not become chronic stress and so that it does not become burnout. This one is called the 4-7-8 breathing technique. And again, it is a call to mindfulness, a call, Tamilore said earlier on, that pay attention to your breath. Pay attention to your nose, to how your tummy increases and decreases with each breath. Breathe through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold it for 7 seconds and exhale through your mouth for 8 seconds. So that's another practical tool that we can use to prevent burnout. Let's move on to a practical tool that we can use for boundaries and, of course, to help the work that we do. For some of us on the call, we might be familiar with what is known as the Eisenhower decision matrix. If something is important and urgent, please, by all means, do it now. Because if you don't do it, it will keep giving you a lot of anxiety. If it's important but it's not urgent, you can plan. I can't do this now. I will come to it maybe in a few days' time. Schedule a time to do it. If it's not important but it is urgent, delegate it. Stop trying to do everything by yourself. You will crash. Sometimes the greatest formula to crashing is trying to do everything by yourself because you're a perfectionist and you don't want to outsource and nobody else can do it like you. Yeah. And that will tell you something. If you feel like nobody else can do it like you, then there's a problem. Equip the people around you to be able to do things as well as you do it, or even better. You'd find that you're able to rest more while you delegate to them and they bring you back and your work is lesser. And of course, if it's not important and it's not urgent, delete it, eliminate it, remove it from the matrix. This might teach you how to manage your workload, your pressure, either in family life, but especially at the workplace. Now let's move on and talk about how best we can manage this, the stress around us. Next slide, please. How can we manage the stress around us? How can we put an end to burnout? We've talked about burnout since, and I remember that when I said earlier that burnout it's like a fire alarm. You're burning, or you can put out a fire alarm. 3 things I want you to remember, and it might be easy to remember this, is the 3 R's. For you to even be able to manage burnout, you must recognize burnout. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it taste like? You don't want to get there. And so you want to be able to identify it even before it starts to show up. You need to notice early warning signs: irritability, disengagement, lack of motivation, chronic fatigue. You must acknowledge it without guilt. And please, ladies and gentlemen, stop normalizing constant exhaustion. It's okay to feel tired every once in a while, but nobody will give you a badge for constantly feeling exhausted. You need to ask yourself, when you want to recognize that, what is my body trying to tell me? Number 2 is that you must learn to reclaim, and you reclaim what you have lost. Burnout is driven by too much demand and too little recovery. And so for you to have gotten to a place where you are almost burning out or you're burning out, you have given a lot of your energy away. Where possible, please reduce workload. Take your leave. Go on holidays. I know that, there's a lot of dirty December to do, and a lot of people are saying, I'm going to Oblate. I've worked so hard all this year. But please rest. Rest is a mental health strategy. Please rest. Minimize unnecessary stressors and busy work. Rest. You get holidays, please, by all means, rest. And ask yourself the question, what can realistically around me will not suffer? Restoration is more than sleep. We usually talk about the 7 types of rest: physical, emotional, spiritual, sensory rest, creative rest. Please rest. Rebuild your energy. Restore your meaning, your purpose, and your joy, and strengthen supportive relationships. Ask yourself, what truly refuels me? What drains my energy? That is one key question that you may be able to answer to be able to, restore yourself and prevent full burnout as well. Remember, burnout is about fires burning, and you can put out those fires. Now, how will you build your resilience plan? 2026 is just around the corner. And before we start giving it all types of names that we always give it, please remember that it should also be a year of resilience, because you want to become the resilient professional who can thrive without burning out. How will you build your resilience plan? It's as simple as what is on we've talked about, and it's this template I want you to use. You would look at yourself and ask yourself, what are my stress triggers? What makes me feel a certain way that drains my energy? Number 2, what are my warning signs? How do I know when I'm struggling? How do I know when I'm thriving? How do I know when I'm in crisis? Number 3, you need to start asking yourself about your boundaries. What will I stop tolerating? What makes me feel less of myself? Which people come into my space? And when I talk about boundaries, I talk about people, places, and processes. If there are people, places, and processes that make you feel less of yourself, perhaps it's time to, do away with some of those relationships because they're not doing you and your mental and physical health any good. Ask yourself, who is in my support network? Who are my friends? Who are the people that I genuinely care about me? Who can look out for me? Not just people who are there when the going is good, but when everything comes crashing, you can't find anyone else in your corner. You must ask yourself, what hygiene steps do I take daily beyond taking a bath? Because most times when we think hygiene, that's what we're thinking about. Physical, taking a bath. There's mental health hygiene. What steps am I doing daily? Am I journaling? Am I walking in nature? Am I dancing? Am I having a gratitude journal? Please, by all means, every day, find something. Am I sleeping well? Am I eating well? Am I calling a friend or spending time with family and friends that I haven't done in a long time? Do things that will fuel your energy instead of draining you. And last but not the least is that you must look at your coping strategy. What do I do when I'm under pressure? I was asking a friend yesterday, I said, what are your love languages? And quite easily he was able to mention them. Oh, physical touch, oh, quality time, acts of service. And then I asked, what is your trauma response? When you're under pressure, when you're under stress, how do you respond? And he fell quiet. What are your coping habits? When you're stressed, what do you do? When I'm stressed, I try to sleep. When I'm stressed, sometimes I spend time on the phone, but I also have to tell myself, get off the phone, sleep, maybe read a book. You must be able to identify your coping habits on a daily, weekly basis, and especially when you are in a place of crisis. Let's move on and as we start coming to the tail end of this conversation today, I want us to identify red flags that require immediate attention, either in ourselves or in others. And so sometimes we will see sudden drastic behavioral changes. You were consistent with something and then all of a sudden you're not interested in it anymore. Or you had decided, oh, you give up drinking and then all of a sudden you find that when you go drinking, you drink 10 bottles. It's drastic. It's a deviation from what you know as normal. It's deviation from what you know as your own normal. So look out for yourself and look out for others. Sometimes it's severe withdrawal, not wanting to talk to anyone. I have a friend that before I wake up every morning, he would have sent me like 20 reels. How do I know there's a problem? I wake up and there's no reel from this person. And I say this because I know that this, my friend, struggles with a mental health condition, depression. And so either in ourselves, we start to withdraw. We don't want to talk to anybody. We're not picking up the phone. We're just saying, oh, I really don't want to talk to anybody. I want to be by myself. Yes, there will be moments like that. But when it starts to increase in intensity and frequency, perhaps it's time to pay attention. Some people start to express intense distress or hopelessness, and they frame it safely or non-graphically. Oh, if I wasn't here, maybe things would be better. And you ask them, where is here? You're like, oh, no, don't worry. I was just saying what I was saying. Sometimes it's a cry for help. Those people might actually be telling you they're suicidal without saying it that entire way. Some have an inability to function at work. And so you see someone who I would describe as a runner at work, able to do everything at all times. All of a sudden, they can't function. They're dropping on tasks. They're unproductive at the workplace. It's a red flag. Some people need personal responsibilities. Oh, you were supposed to do this. You're supposed to turn it in. And you're asking them questions. They can't give you any response. They're just like, I don't know why I didn't do it. So they just keep quiet. They can't explain because they really also don't know. Sometimes it's escalating conflict tendencies. And then you see the people who get on well with everyone at work, but everyone is now complaining about them. They're hostile, they're irritable, they're picking up fights with everyone. It's a red flag. And last but not the least is extreme fatigue impairing safety, including people that work on machines. Maybe they're sleeping while they're moving machines, or you're sleeping when you're typing in figures, or you're sleeping off at a meeting where you're the one coordinating. It may be a red flag that requires immediate attention. And so what should we do? As colleagues, how do we support a colleague who is showing off red flags? The first thing that we'll do that is not on this list is that please make sure that you are supported yourself and that you are in a good place. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. You can't give what you don't have. So be in a good place. Beyond this information. So a lot of times, some people on the call might just be, oh, I've heard this thing before. But beyond knowing, what do you do with what you know? A lot of times there's what is called the no-do gap. You know, but you don't do. So first of all, please take care of yourself. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. When you see a colleague who is support at work that you want to support, who is showing red flags, please approach with empathy. Don't say, guy, you don't start again. Waiting, they always do you now, which is, probably how some people may diffuse the situation. But even if you had to say it, hey, I've noticed, or would you like to grab lunch with me? And over lunch, you can bring up this sensitive issue. Approach with empathy. Let this person feel seen, heard, and validated. You must know what to say and what not to say. And when the person eventually opens up to you and says, oh, I've been struggling, I've just been going through quite a lot. You're like, guys, not only you, even me, I'm coming back from a lot. These days we try to dismiss people. And unfortunately, we don't know that we're dismissing. It takes a lot of courage for someone to open up to you, to tell you how they're feeling. And your response may just be the reason why they never come back anymore. A few years ago, I had to go to an organization to speak to their staff. One of their staff died. And the critical incident stress debriefing, which was what I did on that day, a lot of the staff were feeling guilty. Why were they feeling guilty? Because this person had come to meet them to say, I would have it. Either they were using their phone, they were too busy, or they just kept stalling and saying, not right now, I'm busy, I'm dealing with a lot myself. We must protect people's confidentiality, even when you want to discuss their matters, either with a senior colleague or HR. It mustn't be gist. Somebody tells you something in confidence, please keep it confidential. And many times it's the reason why people don't want to tell their business to anyone else, because they don't know where they're going to hear it. A lot of people who listen to people just listen out of curiosity, not from a place of care and concern. And so when you are asking someone to talk to you, ask yourself, is it out of curiosity that I'm listening? Is it out of care? Is it out of concern? Or is it just what I do on a regular, just listen and not really do anything for this individual? When people come to talk to us and they're telling us that they're struggling, please encourage them to get professional help. Asking for help is not weakness. Instead, it's a sign of strength. Encourage them to ask for help. And sometimes you may say to them, if it does you any good, I would like to come to your first session with you. We must also know when to escalate concerns to HR or management. Sometimes you can't handle some things by yourself, and so you need to ask HR to intervene. It can be as little as, I think this person will do well with some time away from work, or the death of a loved one that they just went through is taking a toll on them. How can we help them? And then, of course, we must develop check-in scripts for our leaders. Our leaders are not just leaders to ensure that all the work is done at the office and that the bottom line is made at all times. Without the people who do the work, nothing will get done. Last but not the least is that beyond the individual, we must start to look at group resilience. And what is group resilience? The collective ability of a group to absorb pressure, to adapt to change, to support one another and recover together. How do you respond when someone on your team is struggling? Do you dismiss it and say, I beg, let everybody get up and do their work. I cannot do anybody's work, which is what some people do. We must know that it is not just the sum of individual resilience. Resilience should be collective, and it should emerge from our relationships, our culture, and the systems that we breathe as well. Individual resilience may help us to thrive, or to survive rather. Group resilience would ensure that we are excelling at every point in time. And as I wrap this conversation, as I bring it to a close, I want to ask you today, are you a resilient professional? Are you self-aware? Are you able to regulate your emotions? And so, as I'm saying this, I want you to take your pen and your paper out. For each one, it's over 10. Just write your 1, 1, 1, and at the end of the day, we'll calculate what it is that you've got. I hope that you'll be willing to share your scores on the chat box. And so number 1 is self-aware. Are you self-aware? Are you able to identify your emotions and your triggers before they escalate? Number 2, can you regulate your own emotion? Can you manage your emotions under pressure, responding thoughtfully rather than reactive impulsively? Number 3, are you adaptable? Are you able to adjust to change, to uncertainty, and setback without losing your identity? Number 4, are you able to put healthy boundaries in place? Do you know when to say no? Do you know when to defer something? Do you know when to disconnect and protect your time, your energy, and your well-being? Number 5, do you have a purpose-driven mindset? Are you anchored in your values and meaning beyond the work that you do? Beyond your work, do you have You know, is there a purpose that you serve? Number 6, are you cognitively flexible? Are you able to reframe challenges, or are you the kind of person that when something happens, you're like, oh, wow, I failed. I can't see any way out of this. It's only this or nothing at all. Are you able to avoid all or none thinking, and are you able to learn from your mistakes? Number 7, do you seek help? Do you see seeking help as a sign of support, as strength, not weakness? Do you use your networks and your resources widely? Number 8, are you recovery oriented? Do you prioritize rest, prioritize sleep and renewal as part of sustainable performance? Number 9, are you able to hold your ethical grounding? Are you able to maintain integrity under pressure? Are you able to recognize the psychological cost of value conflict? And last but not the least, are you growth oriented? Or are you just going with the flow every day? Do you view challenges as opportunities for learning? Or do you always see challenges as evidence of, I'm not doing well enough? And so over 10, I want us to think of everything that I have said and was on that slide and score ourselves. I want to see the people that scored 10 over 10, the people that scored 1 over 10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What did you score? Are you willing to share what you scored? And remember that I had said, the question above was, are you a resilient professional? How resilient are you? Okay, so I can today, Tamilore, just put your numbers here. I'll count it. 1, 2. Okay, 9. Okay, we're having scores. Thank you. Thank you for collating them. We're having scores ranging from 9 to 7 to 9 to 6 to 4, 7, 7, 10, 7, and 10. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. 7, Mahmoud, thank you very much for sharing their scores. And in response to our scores, if you chose all 10, please ask yourself, 8 over 10. Thank you, Ifeanyi Chukwu. If you chose 10 over 10, and before I said that, I was going to say, are you a 10 over 10 plus 10 minus nothing? If you are a 10 over 10 plus 10 minus nothing, I want you to notice your response, not judge it, but observe it. And I want you to ask yourself, where did I learn that resilience requires perfection? Of course, you're getting a 10 over 10 does not also mean that you are pushing yourself to be perfect. You may actually be honest, which don't judge yourself, just observe it. If you chose 7 to 9, or if you scored between 7 and 9, reflect on which qualities currently support you and which ones might need attention. And if you chose 4 to 6 or 1 to 3, which is not a diagnosis or a failure, it is information. Resilience grows with awareness, not self-criticism. Now, I want you to ask yourself very quietly, which one quality, if strengthened over the next month, will make the biggest difference to my well-being? That, my dear, is where your resilience work starts from. As I round up, I want to share with us, what is your one thing? The one thing, like we can see, is a book. It's a book that was written by Gary, Mr. Gary. And he says that your one thing is the single most important task that you can do right now that makes everything else easier. And so if you had to choose one resilience tool, one resilience skill, one resilience environment trick or something in your environment, what would it be? Just like I asked in the question above, what is one quality that if I strengthen over the next 1 month would make the biggest difference to my well-being and hopefully to my 2026? We must know that resilience isn't built all at once. It is strengthened with one intentional choice at a time. Resilience is not a checklist, ladies and gentlemen. It is a dynamic mix. And missing one pillar does not mean that you're weak. However, ignoring it for too long can increase your chance of burnout. In closing, I want to share some takeaways. What is your takeaway from this conversation? My own takeaway for you is that burnout doesn't ask for permission. It is quiet and gradual, but burnout is real. Another takeaway is that the body keeps the score. Our bodies don't forget. We might think it's just a little, just take on a little more, but our body keeps the score. Self-neglect can look like commitment. The most important person in the conversation is usually you. Please don't leave yourselves behind. Helping others is not a substitute for helping yourself. Take care of yourself first. Boundaries aren't selfish, they are survival. And you can recover, but you have to change something. The last but not the least is that you must ensure mental hygiene at all times. I want us to look at this slide that I will show next as a form of encouragement to please keep your chin up. No one expected you to save the world. Otherwise, you'd have been wearing a cape and tights. Just do the best you can. The truth is that a lot of us are superheroes without capes. And every day that you get up and you show up, you're doing the best that you can. But please, while doing the best that you can, don't leave yourself behind. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, professionals from all walks of life, I'd like to thank you for your time, your presence, and your commitment to well-being. Again, resilience is not about enduring hardship endlessly. It's about working, about living, and leading in ways that are sustainable. As you sign out today, please continue to thrive with intention. Set healthy boundaries and choose recovery without guilt. I wish you strength. I wish you clarity. I wish you balance as you remain the resilient professional who is thriving without burnout. And I would never end a conversation without saying, do remember that there is indeed no health without mental health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sabiri. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I see that some people are raising hands. As opposed to raising hands, you can just drop a question in the chat box. Thank you, Dr. Abiri. So we do have some questions for you. There's thank you, Ma. There's thank you in the chat box. Thank you, thank you. So we have a few questions for you. And just before I even delve into questions, some of the things that you've said now about your body keeps score. Your body remembers what you are doing to it. Those are powerful words. Okay, so I'm going to go to the first question here. I'm reading from the bottom. How can professionals recover after experiencing burnout without losing momentum in their careers? We have like 3 or 4 more questions. 5 maybe to go. Okay, that's the first one I asked. Or should I ask all of them at once?
Yes, please.
Okay, that's the first one.
Please go ahead. Ask all the
next
questions.
one. Okay, how can I remain resilient in roles that require constant availability and tight deadlines? You know, some of the points in there where, take some time to rest. But you don't have time to rest at all. Okay, are there daily routines or habits that realistically help prevent burnout for busy professionals, aside from those ones that you had mentioned in your slide? Then, how do I set boundaries at work without affecting my career growth or performance ratings? Second to the last, this one is more in the form of a comment. I basically work with my laptop most of the time, sitting and focused on my laptop screen for hours, and I've gotten used to this kind of work style. I'd like to learn healthy ways to manage this kind of work and lifestyle. Next one. This one is on my, okay. For those of us that have tried practicing the Eisenhower, I can't remember to see what, but Eisenhower, and the thing has spoiled in our eyes. What do? Spoiled in our eyes, I'm assuming that means it's no longer working. Yes, it's not working. Okay, those are the questions. Oh, another one says, can resilience be learned or is it a personality trait? I hope you'll be able to answer all these questions. They seem quite, but I can reiterate them if there's a need.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much. I'll start with the last question. When I was speaking earlier on, I had mentioned that resilience is not a skill that you're either born with or not born, or born without. It's not a personality trait. It's a skill that can be learned. It's one of the soft skills. You know, the soft skills are the skills of communication, assertiveness, resilience, emotional intelligence. It's something that you can learn. And how can you learn about it? You can dedicate time to it. You dedicate effort to it. You read about it. you attend seminars and webinars about it. You know, there's some topics in life that you think that you know so much about, but somebody then does some research and they're teaching you new stuff. It's, for me, that kind of topic would be emotional intelligence. I keep buying books, I keep listening to webinars, I keep listening to TEDx talks. So wherever you can get information, and that information, of course, has to be valued, and that information has to be from a good source. Please develop your resilience. Again, some of the tips that we've shared here today, I spoke about how, you know, you have to do neuroplasticity, and how you have to look at the pillars of, you know, of resilience, and how also you also have to look at the environment that you find yourself. Because again, sometimes you keep working hard at being resilient, but the environment that you're in, which is one of the questions that you have asked, would, you know, keep trumping it. So again, be determined as to what it is you want to achieve. Identify, for instance, like today, our resilience plan is a, you know, our personalized resilience plan, I believe it's a fantastic place to start. Identify what your triggers are, identify what your support system is, identify how you cope under pressure. Look at where you currently are, because again, it's not a have or have not. You have some skills. And so you will need to look at the skills you need to develop or build on, and you have to look at some things that you may also need to take away from. So I hope it is good news and sharing news for you to hear that it's not a have or have not. It's a skill that you can learn and develop. Right. So for the individual that feels like that is in our matrix, productivity matrix is no longer working. I laughed when I heard that it's no longer working. It's no longer effective. And sometimes we can feel like that because, you know, either we've overused it or it's something that we've taken advantage of. I think that you need to go back to it and take several steps to adapt it. Because I just look at it, the truth is, when you look at the work that you need to do, it's either you have to do it now, it's either it can wait, it's either it's not important, or it's something that you can come to much later. It would almost always fall into that category. And when you ask that question, I also thought about the fact that sometimes when you have a toy that you have longed for so long, and you eventually get that toy, after you've played with that toy, just imagine a kid tells you, I want a new toy. And within 24 hours, you see that the kid has thrown away the toy. So that was how the Eisenhower matrix looked to us for a very long time. But sometimes when you use something over and over again, it just looks like it's not doing the work that it's supposed to do. However, what I would tell you to do is you should, you know, clarify your definitions of what is urgent and what is important, especially in your own context. You see, many times, many of these things are developed by individuals who have used it and who it has worked for them in certain populations. Sometimes you also need to be able to tailor it to fit your own needs. And so while it is 4 quadrants, for all you care, you may just want to have 2 quadrants, or you just want to have, you know, just 2, and say just 2 boxes and say, I just want urgent and important and urgent and whatever it is that works for you. So I think that being able to typify it to your own work, the kind of work that you do, and what would come off as effective for you is what you should also pay attention to. So clarify your definition of what is urgent, what is important. You may need to limit tasks per quadrant. Sometimes when people also look at boxes like that or quadrants like that, they're thinking, oh, do I really have to put this thing in my own line of work? I probably don't have a paper where I write urgent, important, urgent, but I know how I want to get things done on a daily basis. And so, for instance, when I wake up in the morning and I want to do my to-do list, which I rarely do because, again, I have an idea, a fair idea of what I want to get to. I would probably just write, I'll probably just write 3 things that I want to get to. And then when I write it, I would write it from the most important to the least important. So that when I start getting off them, I'm like, oh, this is gone. Oh, this is gone. And then, of course, at the end of the day, somehow that also mirrors the Eisenhower, you know, matrix, because somehow it has helped you to look at this is the most important thing, and then the next most important thing. And if I can't get it done, it's at the end of the table. It's not something that, you know, it's life-threatening and I just left and said I wasn't going to get to. So again, allow it to meet your own needs. Be flexible with it. Recognize that in real life, tasks don't always, you know, fit neatly into any of those boxes. The matrix is just a guiding principle. And of course, even when you decide to use something, you need to regularly monitor and evaluate. Is it working for me? Yes, I'll continue using it. If it's not working for me, perhaps I want to try something else. So please, it's okay to try something else as well and not keep yourself, you know, saying that this is all that I want to do. And then I think that concept of eating the frog, what's your own frog? What's the most important thing for you on a daily basis? What do you want to wake up to do first of all? And of course, use other things, assertiveness, learning to say no, learning to manage your time, learning to take decisions, using
boundaries.
the skill. Yes, please put in boundaries in place. All of those things are important. So I would say to you, the matrix is fantastic, but the matrix may not be all that you need to get your life work done as well.
Okay.
Right. So the next question.
Yes, so I'm going to combine two of them together because it seems painful to the person that wrote it. What practical steps can I take when my workload is genuinely excessive and cannot be reduced? And how can I tell the difference between being temporarily overwhelmed and being on the path to burnout? Then Mahmoud, I don't know how to pronounce the surname, so I'm just going to skip that. Mahmoud says, how can we manage office politics that always demoralize someone's productivity?
So Mahmoud, thank you for asking that question. And we see you, even though we don't know where you work. I can only imagine, for you to have verbalized this kind of question, it's probably hitting you quite hard. And the first thing I would say is you need to learn the politics. Yesterday I was listening to one of my colleagues and she was saying, no, I don't like politics. Whether you like politics or not, life has politics. So politics is not only the one that they're doing in Abuja or in states or in state houses in Lagos.
Anywhere that there are 2 or 3 people gathered.
There's politics. Exactly. There's politics. So there's politics about life. And the first thing you need to do is you need to learn the politics to be able to play the politics. And you don't have to play dirty. You can be the individual who is different. One of the things I'd mentioned earlier on today that sometimes I get bored. And boredom for me is, what's the next thing I want to do? And one of the things that I thought to do this year and that I would do next year, because the sign up was full, was that I thought that I would register in the School of Politics and Governance. So there's a school like
SPPG.
that.
Yes,
SPPG. And when I tell people, they're like, but you're a doctor, why do you want to know about politics? Why not? And what I said to the person was, in future, what if there's a position and they're saying the only doctor that they will give it to is someone who has some knowledge in politics and governance? You need to learn about politics, not because you want to play dirty, but because you want to be informed and aware. What we don't know, we fear. And many times, because many of us think that politics is just this, it's hydra-headed. I can't understand it and understand what is going on at your workplace. Some people may appear to be favored against other people, either because they're doing certain things. I would always, say, err on the side of ethics at all times. Do your work, do the best at your work, and go home. If your workplace is becoming so toxic that it is affecting your mental health, your well-being, sometimes the truth is that you may need to take a walk. But before you take a walk, do the best that you can. Learn about it. Play the politics. But play the politics to be different. Play the politics because you want to learn how to make things better in that place. And if you have to leave, you need to, do a few things to make your own life better wherever it is that you go. So again, learn about the politics of the workplace. A good book will probably be Move Your Boss by Ron Clark. It teaches you about relationship management in the workplace. Another good book will probably be Surrounded by Idiots. Even though I always say, please don't take that book to work when you work. Because one of the things that we also need to start doing is learning the temperaments of the people that come to the workplace. Beyond the expertise that they come with, people come with personalities, they come with trauma, they come with lived experiences that they have not dealt with. And whether you like it or not, those things will show up in how they walk and how they relate with you as well. So I'll take the question about, the individual who has daily routines or who wants daily routines in a difficult workplace. If you're already saying that it is overwhelmed, you're already on your way to burnout. And unfortunately, it's unfortunate because many of the things around you, you can't control them. Yeah. There are deadlines, there are things to meet, to beat, their clients to. A lot of workplaces carry the invisible tag. Working here is dangerous to your health and sanity.
Dangerous to your health.
Yeah, but I mean, they don't say it. They just tell you things. I've had people come to me who tell me that I work in one of the top financial institutions and they don't care about your health. They just want to get their work done. A few weeks ago, I worked with a lady who told me that she walked away from a job that other people are praying for, or rather, other people appear to be praying for because it was too overwhelming. And I know you cannot walk away from every job. That's the reason why you need to learn how to manage yourself in those difficult situations. Again, it will go back to the things that we've said. Without appearing lazy or pushing work away, you have to put boundaries in place. What you will do, what you can do, deliver on your job, do the best that you can. But you see, when the job that you do starts to take a toll on your health, a toll on your well-being. You see, the young man that I spoke about earlier, it was in an organization where it was going to be made partner. Imagine waking up one day and your brain is as clean as a slate. He couldn't remember anything. Wow. And so we had to take him out. Yeah, we had to take him out from work because he was already depressed. He was contemplating suicide. He was already feeling like he was a failure, just like his mother was when, his mother had the same experience that at the height of her career, when she was supposed to be given a position, it was taken away from her. So it was a form of re-traumatization. You don't want to push yourself to that point. So you need to, there's never enough time, but you need to make that time to rest. If resting is getting up from your seat every hour to take a walk, to ensure that you're eating well, you're sleeping well, tend to the things that you can. And when you get to work, of course, do the work. I think that another thing that we don't take advantage of a lot is a support system. You need somebody who checks in on you, who wakes up and says, how are you doing today? If that's the only thing that person says, or somebody who, like Simon Sinek would say, do you have 8 minutes? Somebody that you can just quickly talk to, quickly cry, quickly express your frustrations during the day. Sometimes I have to do that to my friends who are younger than I am. They're like, I'm going through hell. This person is putting, and I'm like, somebody who centers you regularly and tells you that I can imagine what you're going through. I don't know what you're going through, but until you find another one. And then what I say to them too is, well, yeah, this one, please start looking for another job because it looks like this job. No, it's true.
It's after your life.
It's after your life. So you must prioritize rest and recovery and ensure that you focus on self-care and enjoyment. The support system, extremely, extremely important. You can't do life alone. You need other people. And you need other people who see you and who can also tell you time and again, please rest.
Okay. I'm going to ask the last 3 questions together. So we'll be wrapping up soon. One, how can high achievers avoid guilt when they take this is very important. How can high achievers avoid guilt when they take breaks or time off, particularly in fast-paced environments? There are times that the pressure is from the clients who are difficult to manage themselves. So, second one, what role does self-awareness play in building long-term professional resilience? Because some of us are in it for the long haul. Thirdly, what can young professionals do when their managers or the system do not recognize or acknowledge burnout? As a tag on to this last one, is in the situations where there are different people telling you that the task you're about to the tasks you need to submit are urgent. How do you handle that? And you're not the senior sort of. How do you handle that without burning out?
Okay, so in my line of work, there's something called respondent superior, meaning you must always give the responsibility to the senior person. Okay. In work, I would assume that in many workplaces, maybe not in all workplaces, that tasks are well spelled out. What I'm supposed to do is given to me. I have a deadline, I work on it, and I move it on to someone else. Unfortunately, sometimes it may look like you're micromanaging everyone, because in those kind of workplaces, you may need to document extensively. When you're done, I have done my bit and I'm sharing it with you. And if people who don't want to take, who don't want to pay attention to those things, they don't like documenting. They'll start asking you, why are you sending mails? why are you documenting everything? But you also know that you're trying to protect yourself. So if you've done your own bit, please put it out and say, I've done my bit, please, for your attention, sir. Again, beyond being respondent superior, there's the concept about who has got the monkey. If you're not careful, as the junior worker or even as the senior worker, sometimes you find out that you're the one doing all the work because everyone else believes that it is your role. I believe that if roles are well spelled out, job descriptions are well spelled out in places where people work, and you document at the end of the day, you move it. So you move it from everything can depend on you, because if everything comes crashing down, people will blame you, but again, it's not you who will take the fall for it. When I used to work, in a facility, I realized that what someone did or didn't do, especially because my job had to do with life. If anybody, for instance, I was in a facility and anybody died, that's the worst that can happen. It's me they will come after. And so as the leader, yes, they will come after me. They'll come after my certificate. And so as the leader, what did I do? I ensured that I was interested enough. But again, not everybody will be interested enough, which is why organizations must be kind. They must know the kind of people that they are employing. Not everybody who comes to work wants to work. Some people are just at work and they're just thinking that everybody else should do the work but themselves. And I think that this is where the conversation to us as individual matters. Please, when you come to work every day, come with the mindset to make another person's life easier, not tougher than it already is. People are going through so much. If everybody opened what they were going through in their homes, but that they had to drop at the door before they come into the office, you'll be shocked. Make life easy for everybody. Do your work. You don't have to be friends with anybody at the workplace. It's great to have relationships, including with people who you don't like, because the work has to get done. It's a great leadership quality to be able to speak to people who you can't even stand their guts, because work
Doctor,
has
we pity for those people at the back that cannot hear you clearly.
So please, it's a great leadership quality to be able to get along with people, including people who don't like you or who you don't like. But of course, I would always say, as much as it is possible, live peaceably with all men. If it is possible, do your work, have great relationships at work. But the most important thing is to get the work done without frustrating anyone, throwing anyone else under the bus, or making other people look bad. Please let us be human. Let us be considerate. I'll tell you this story. A woman had said to me that she got a job and she's, in my age range. And she was working with these 5 young people who unfortunately were very unkind to her. They would exclude her from meetings. They would not tell her about. So she started to look incompetent. And they didn't know what she was going through in her own home. And all of a sudden, the tables turned and she was quite worried that a lot of them had lost their jobs. And I said to her, because again, you see, finding people who center you, including a therapist, including someone who can hold your hand when you're going through difficult times. When she was going through her difficult moments, she would speak to me. And whether it seemed like a pep talk, whether it seemed like coaching, she always felt centered and strong enough to go back to work. Of course, she would cry behind doors. But at the end of the day, she was able to weather the storm while the rest of them were asked to go. So please be kind to the people at your workplace. It's not a competition. It's not about who does the best. In fact, like we always say, collaboration is the new competition. Be kind to other people. Don't bring your wickedness to the workplace. Please don't be wicked to other people. Be kind and see people because they're going through a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amin. Everyone on the call, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I want you to don't want to seem like I'm forcing it, but I want you to give a big round of applause to Dr. Abiri. I learned a lot. I think everyone too learned a lot. It's not presumptuous for me to say that. Everyone learned a lot. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you. For those of us who joined, once this call ends, there'll be a poll that'll come up. So it would be nice if you can just give us feedback on when the poll comes up. Last to round it up, DCSL Academy hosted this website. Sponsored this session. And if we have our training calendar out, there are more trainings coming up in 2026 that will be insightful and useful for you. So if you want the training calendar, if you want any other thing from us, please email dcslacademy@dcsl.com.ng or ntaiwo@dcsl.com.ng to request a copy of the 2026 calendar. You can follow us on all social media platforms, LinkedIn, it's DCSL Corporate Services Limited, Instagram and YouTube, it's DCSL Nigeria. Our website is www.dcsl.com.ng. And with that, it's a wrap from us. Please complete the poll once it drops after the webinar ends. Thank you everyone for your time. It's amazing that you cut out 1 hour, 30 minutes or more of your time to spend with us today. Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Abiri. I'm armed with tools for next year. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Till next time, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Happy holidays.